Rebekah Henderson's going to come. Come on. She's presented to us before about missions trips, and she has went on another one. And so give her your attention. There you go.
Like Dan said, my name's Rebekah Henderson, and I grew up in this church, and I've had the opportunity to travel to Kenya. This was my third time going there, and I was able to be there for just under 12 weeks, and then I spent about 11 days in Ethiopia. Before I get too far into what I'm going to share about you, I have a report of the crazy cool things that God is doing in nations across the world. There are two verses I want you guys to think about. These verses played a huge role while I was there, and I could just see God's hand the entire time I was there. But the first one is 2 Thessalonians 5:24, which is, "He who calls you is faithful, he will surely do it." And then Habakkuk 1:5, "Look among the nations and see, and be astounded, for I am doing a work in your day that you would not believe if told." And so those are the dates that I was gone in Kenya and in Ethiopia. So like I said, this was my third time in Kenya. This is a nation that I had felt incredibly called to the first time I went, but I kind of kept pushing it aside because I'm like, nah, you don't want me to go back there. You don't want me to go back there. And then he took me there for 12 weeks. But my main purpose for going back to Kenya was to continue to build the relationships that I met the first time I went and then the second time I went, and just to continue to cultivate those and to learn more about those people and to fully immerse into the Kenyan culture, as well as set up medical clinics that will be led in January. And then I had the opportunity to visit a few different hospitals and get to work in those hospitals as well. And then I also spent a few time at a rescue center, which is a center for kids who have run away from home due to abuse or trafficking. Their family has been killed due to famine or HIV or some other illness. Or they're kids that have been addicted to glue on the street, and they're in this program to be able to break that addiction and to be fully functioning humans again. And then I also got to teach CRE classes, which is Christian and Religion classes at the school that the nonprofit I went with, which was Simba Educational Ministries. So I got to spend quite a bit of time at that school. And so this is the first picture of building relationships. The first picture on the right is me and my friend Bethany. So Bethany went to my school, but the first time I met her was when we bought our plane tickets to Kenya. And so that was the first relationship that I was going to build, was building a relationship with the person that I would be sharing my weekends with while I was there. And God does crazy cool things, because for not knowing each other, we left best friends. So, and then the middle picture is Mama. She is the director, or like the superintendent of the school that the nonprofit that we sponsor, I went with. And she is an incredible lady. She has a story that would break your heart, but the way that she continues to use her testimony to glorify God and to pour into the Kenyans is beautiful. I can't describe her, she's incredible. And then the last picture is my host family, so that's Mama. I stayed with her quite a bit. And then Joanne and her 3 kids are right there as well. So Joanne is Mama's daughter-in-law, and so I got to spend time with them and just get to pour into that family as well. And then I mentioned that I got to do a lot of different hospital visits. And so the picture at the top right corner over here is, that's with me and Joanne. So Joanne is a nurse in the emergency department at one of the hospitals that I got to work at. And so that was it's called True for Africa, and it's one of the only children's hospitals in Eastern Africa. And so it was really incredible to get to just spend time there and to get to build relationships. The middle top picture is with Eliud Kipchoge, which if anybody follows running, he just ran a marathon in under 2 hours. And so I got to spend time with him. He was visiting the hospital and got to build a little bit of a relationship with him as well. And then Miriam is over here, the last picture on the top, and she was one of my best friends at the hospital. She was a nurse there, and she was my go-to translator because my Swahili was very bad. And so just getting to build a relationship with her was really incredible, and to hear her story as well. And then the bottom pictures are just a few pictures from that children's hospital and then a few of the other. So I visited about 4 different hospitals. The main one, I spent most of the time at the one that Joanne worked at because I was comfortable there, and I knew how to get there by myself. And then I also went to a few rural clinics throughout the between an hour and 2 hours outside of the city that I stayed at. And then one other picture I want to talk about on this slide is this girl right here, right next to the IV picture. That is Mercy. So Mercy quickly became one of my best friends at the hospital as well. She had been there for quite some time before I arrived in Kenya, but she has a smile and a joy that lights up the room when you walk in. She is incredible, but she was there for scoliosis, she had a bed sore, and she had leukemia. So in some tribes in Kenya, when you have a disability or an illness, that is seen as a bad omen or not good. So you're either left at the hospital, left on the side of the road, or sold to a witch doctor. And that's what happened to Mercy. Her parents had brought her in and left her there. And so she had been there for probably about 6 weeks by the time that I got there by herself. And she's 10. So this little 10-year-old girl was fighting all these illnesses on her own. But she had the joy of the Lord that I can't even begin to describe it. She was a beautiful little girl. And yeah, leaving her was very hard, but she was in a great place at that hospital, was taking incredible care of her, and I know that they will lead her into a better home afterwards. But so she's a cool kid. And then these are just a few pictures from the rescue center and the special needs home. I want to talk about the little boy up there on the left. That's little Sammy. When I first got to Kenya in May, I saw Sammy at the rescue center, and he was 2 months old and only weighed 10 pounds. And he could barely lift his head. His mom was addicted to glue. And when I say addicted to glue, there's like a type of cement glue that's very strong. So the addiction to it is worse than a cocaine addict or a heroin addict. Like, that's the comparison in the U.S. And so he was at the rescue center, and they weren't sure where his family was or his parents were, but that's the picture of right before I left Kenya, and he had gained a considerable amount of weight, could lift his head and could smile and start to babble. So that's just a testimony I want to share from how incredible the rescue center is there and the good work that they're doing. And then those are just a few more pictures. The pictures of us in the yellow vests are from the special needs home. So the special needs home is this guy named Patrick who just had a huge heart for those who had special needs. And like I mentioned before, those who have special needs are pretty much shunned from society and don't really have any hope of living in the city or anywhere in Kenya. But this guy, he just has a heart for them, and he's an incredible man of God, and decided to take all these kids into this one single room house and had like 15 kids living there. And I say single room because they had their kitchen, their bedrooms, everything is one little, probably about the size of this stage. And so I had the honor to help build that house. And so they have a new house that has rooms for all the kids and a kitchen and a place to take care of them. And he's actually trained to do physical therapy. So some of the kids that he had there that had a physical disability have been able to, he's been able to work with them to release them out to society. So that's really cool. And then this is from St. Jacob's. These are my OG kids. So I met them the first time I went to Kenya, and I just got to build incredible relationships with them this summer. I spent probably one night out of the week at the school, just because if they ask you to spend the night, it's so hard to say no to them. So I would usually stay at least one night in the dorms with them. But the group that I really connected with were the 7th graders. And there's a couple pictures up there of them, but especially the 7th grade girls. I would have the opportunity to do devotions with them almost every single day, and just getting to hear their heart and watch them turn from head knowledge to heartfelt. Because these kids are super smart. They take religion classes. They know the Bible A to Z. But what was missing was they weren't feeling it in their heart, and they didn't know what it really meant to have a relationship with Jesus. And so getting to walk with them and have them ask questions like, what is a relationship with God? What is a testimony? And these things was a beautiful moment just to get to experience that, and really humbling to know how blessed I was to grow up in a church that taught me that, and that I was able to feel that as well. But yeah, those are the kids. And then those are more pictures of the kids and the teachers. The 2 pictures on either side at the top, those are 2 of the teachers that they became my best friends at the school while I was there. Their names are Nettie and Faith, and they are wonderful ladies who have a heart for God and have a heart for teaching these kids. They've had many opportunities to get a pay grade and go to a different school, but they have chosen to stay at St. Jacob's because those kids mean that much to them. But yeah, they're great ladies, and they taught me lots of African dances and how to cook lots of African food. And then I'll give you a brief overview of Ethiopia. So Ethiopia, we were only there for about 11 days, and it was me, my friend Emily, who is a bio major, and our friend Chase, who's the founder of Simba Educational Ministries. And Ethiopia was a vision trip for all of us, because somebody had reached out to Chase about doing something similar to what they do in Kenya, of sponsoring a school and coming alongside the school that is really not in a good place. And so that was our main purpose, was just to scope out the area, build relationships, see the heart of God, and just see what God is doing in Ethiopia. Some background about Ethiopia. They have a 49% literacy rate, which means over half of the country is illiterate, which leads to their rate of unemployment, and why they're in the way, or why their school system is the way it is because they don't have the teachers to equip the schools, and so most of them end up closing. They also are about 60% Muslim and 40% Eastern Ethiopian Orthodox. And so there's a huge need for the gospel there as well, and that was very evident when we walked around on the street. And just the culture in general was completely different than Kenya. I felt like I was entering a whole nother continent when I went into Ethiopia, because you go into Kenya and they're all very nice and warm and welcoming and very hospitable, and you go to Ethiopia and they're very, not necessarily turned off by you, but they're in their own world, and unless you're wearing a headscarf, nobody's probably going to give you a second look. These are some pictures of Ethiopia. The 2 pictures on the right over here are our host. So we did stay at a hotel just because we weren't sure of the area and hadn't formally met the people until we got there. And so one of our hosts, or the people who tour us around, he was an Ethiopian Orthodox priest. And so we got to hear his heart, and we got to have some really cool gospel conversations with him and his kids, and just he taught us a lot about Ethiopia. It was a very difficult time because they speak a completely different language, which is Amharic, and none of us knew any of that. And they didn't know English very much as well. Their main export is coffee, so we had lots of coffee. It was 9 p.m. and they would still give us coffee. And then these are just a few other pictures of our time there. We got to the picture of me and my friends with our headscarves on. That was at the land of the school, and so we got to visit with a few of the kids, and we got to try their food and see a lot of their. So the picture with the waterfall, that's actually a honey export, or I don't know the word I'm thinking of, but that's where they harvest honey. And so we got to just see a lot of like how they do things differently compared to the U.S. and compared to Kenya. And I think that's my last one, yeah. So, just really get to see the parts of the world that God's heart is breaking for. It was really humbling to just be in that position and to get to build those relationships and to see God working, because even though we felt a little discouraged when we left that trip, because we're like, we have no idea where to start. But we are also incredibly encouraged knowing that God is going to work with us there or here, and he's going to continue to do that work. That's it. So thank you.
So, Rebekah, it is our honor to watch you grow up here and then watch you grow up as a missionary. So good job, and praise the Lord for you. Goodbye. We'll see you next week.